Hey everybody, do I even remember how to do this? Well, let's find out. Posted a little video about this 1958-ish Maserati Formula 1 car, which I've enjoyed driving yesterday. So I figured, you know what, let's do one of the old school things. Let's do a bit of a talk and drive. You can see it is pale O vision. This webcam is authentic for the November type of weather, so it's best to stay indoors. Sim racing. I do have a error here. This is a steering wheel. I also have this one, which is way nicer and far more appropriate. However, it's not got an adapter. I have to 3D print something and then I can't look over it. But so yeah, we have a not authentic modern-ish steering wheel, which is easier actually. There's a lot less traveled you have to do. So I just spent a day or two, 1.5, on this Maserati 250F. Now, is it accurate enough to call that? Data is very rare. It's not much about stories. Not very reliable, but in the spirit of the rules, it's got the right suspension. It's got a proper Dion axle on the rear, which I think is still something I'm fairly proud of. I think I'm the only one, but I'm not sure. Managing to actually get a Dion axle work in the physics engine. What is a Dion axle? Well, it's not used anymore. The most recent car to use it is a Caterham. It's sort of like a live axle, but then it's dead. It's not alive. The differential is not part of the axle. The differential is part of the car itself, the main chassis. But the rear tires are together as if it is an axle. What it means is the rear tires always have the same camber. I want to take my hands off the wheel, but I shouldn't. So the rear tires have the same camber at all times, which is actually sort of a nice consistent feel. It does change the handling of the car, but oh yeah, it's really nice this, because the fun thing about doing physics, I still do that, just don't make a lot of videos anymore, but it's like mad scientist moments where you just enter the numbers that you think are fairly real. And then something comes out that handles a certain way, and ideally, of course, if you put in reasonable numbers, the handling is also reasonable. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, the fun is that you don't really put handling in your spreadsheet. You put car numbers in the spreadsheet, and if the car numbers make sense, the handling will also make sense. And it's very nice to see that with the Dion axle vintage tires that need quite a bit more slip angle, they are always a bit darty. Simply by putting in those numbers in just one day of work, we have oversteer, understeer, but it's really sort of gentle. It dances with a bit of braking on the nose, you can turn it in, and then on the throttle it sort of glides out. Not a lot of grip, of course. The main thing they were trying to achieve in the 50s is probably keep the tires alive. worry about the grip levels later. Oh, well, there is a limit. But it's not even so much that there is no grip. It does do a little bit more than 1G of cornering force, which is equal to a modern high-performance road car. But it does so at 10 or 12 degrees slip angle, whereas a modern road car will probably do half of that. So it feels slidey, even though the grip is the same as a modern road car. It just happens when the car is more... Is this too late? Oh, it might well be. The car is just always at a bit of an angle before you get the grip. And that makes it sort of wobbly off center, which is great. Now, this is the 1958 mod. Originally came out for R Factor, was converted to AMS, and its original physics are not as direct. So the trick is, of course, that these things are not super heavy. You want a bit of immediate response. It's not like it's a magic carpet. You know, it responds quite well. But then when it doesn't respond, see, that is just slow motion, nice little slide. And I've also seen some videos of the Assetto Corsa version where it also seems to sort of float. Strangely sort of float. So the trick is to feel connected with a bit of directness. But not like, it's always at an angle, but it's not snappy. Yet it responds fairly well off center. Now, again, this is just a day of work. And I'm definitely not an expert on these cars. But I'm definitely enjoying this challenge of a bit more responsive than some of the other versions of this car I drove in Sims. Yet maybe more progressive. Like here it's sort of, it's just four-wheel drifting. I've always liked cars that slide a bit, but sometimes it is sort of a binary situation. The car is stable, or you have two arms full of opposite lock, and it's nicer to and harder to create a car that is more has a few states in between being all crossed up or being understeery. But it is quite tricky to have initial bite, the vaguest term in the world. However, thankfully Straight Force Studios has discovered bite, magic bite force. No, but what is meant with bite, I don't know. It is sort of a reasonably direct non-vagueness, but a lot of the time that means the car is also snappy around the center, and if you don't straighten a slide quickly enough, you might get a tank slapper. This is third gear. This is second. But it's not just even in the tires, it's things like the inertia of the vehicle. That's literally sort of a change of direction, sluggishness. And that's sometimes things that games or mods can do. Oh, like, yeah, lekker, I was about to say, which is Dutch for nice. So you can increase the inertia of the vehicle, the yaw inertia. It will feel more sluggish, but that's also subjectively taking some of that magic bite away. So, what you want is a car that does react off-center, so you want reasonable inertias and reasonable response in the tires. that then isn't snappy at the limit. And oh. Even that, being completely insane, was sort of gentle. Nice bit of understeer, and then see how I can just leave 60 degrees of opposite lock and it rides out of the turn. It's really nice. But just one day of work, and it's not like there is I'm an encyclopedia on 50s Formula 1 cars. And there's one aspect of, especially of the more vintage cars, that isn't simulated too well in modern games. It's just that things weren't as perfect back then, of course. Maybe the engine would splutter every now and then. There may be some weird oscillation frequencies in the suspension when you brake at certain... Speaking of braking, yeah, I think I make it. So no steering, a little bit of opposite lock. But no snapback, it just... Oh, is this cool? It just goes back straight. The little crest there, you feel that really well. So, and then you can just catch it if you want. However, I'm not really driving properly. Some of you will think, Niels, you haven't talked about throttle models yet. Yeah, that's true. The throttle model helps. Especially on a car with low-ish grip like this. And if you haven't seen my videos on throttle models, please do so. The improved model we have to our availability here in Automobilista means that part throttle does more. And it's also more drivable. So out of corners at 65% throttle is enough to maintain a nice slide sometimes. So I feel this is a pretty nice, floaty but controllable with some directness. Part throttle. Nice. And another thing that is difficult to do on old cars is, yeah, well, braking. I did that on purpose. It's really difficult to understand what the limit is for brakes on these old cars. They had drum brakes, but pretty decent ones, so you wonder. But it seems like in historic racing in general, they struggle to really push the braking. The G-forces you see in onboard videos when they have a bit of a data logging enabled, the G-force is fairly low, so they corner at a little over 1G. But they brake at maybe 0.7, 0.8. And one of the things people do in sims is then just make the brakes weak, so you can press 100% and you don't lock. To me, that takes a lot of challenge away, and I don't really know if that's a reasonable solution. I don't think the brakes are too weak. There's just something about the tires, the brake technology, or the physical effort required that makes it difficult to brake exactly on the limit in historic cars. I don't know what it is. But any car in any sim, if you have ABS, so completely in control. They're very sluggish, nice. But the brake pedal is such an important pedal. So I can lock them up. Like that. It takes a little bit, but still a challenge. And what it comes down to here is the tires have quite a bit more cornering grip than braking grip. For which there isn't really any data, but it does seem to work. And that also means they don't have a huge amount of traction grip as well. And this is a new feature that I've added to my spreadsheet in AMS. That it is actually possible to separate the traction grip from the braking grip. So these tires, without having any data for it, I reduced the braking grip a bit more versus the traction grip. So I am braking a bit harder than I think is reasonable for these cars, but at least I have to work the pedal now, as opposed to some of the other mods in various games where they simulate the weak brakes by having weak brakes and then you can just floor the pedal, which takes a big skill element away. I have to be careful with my pedal here. Once you apply that throttle, you can just ride it out of the turn. Oh, bit late, bit late. If anything, I have a bit more understeer into the corners. At no point there am I afraid that it will snap, or it's sort of working with me quite well. So the setup at the moment, I feel mid-corner, if I haven't set the car up in a slight drift, four-wheel drift early, I might get some understeer. Maybe we can tweak the setup a bit for that, but the problem with understeer is that it always results in more oversteer because you push through the understeer and then the car tends to quite suddenly go. Like there, if you have a nice attitude going into the turn, then you can control the attitude with the throttle. Here's our braking quite sideways. Okay, that's rough. So it's a bit more than you want, really. So it is about finding the optimal. Oh, this is not optimal. This is not optimal. In cars like this, it's more about finding the optimal slide rather than having your arm crossed over or understeer. That makes it really delicate. That's what I like about these old cars. The brake distances are really long, but how you come off the brake and into the turn, it is so much more gentle than a modern car. You smash the pedal and you still trail brake, and it is still very important. But cars like these are so much more delicate and slow in their response that it's like it's far more sort of a some slow motion game. And the angle you give the car at the beginning of the turn, you can maintain that angle all throughout the turn. It all happens a bit too fast in modern cars to really be so aware of it. but even though the car is easy-ish to drive, it's very hard to get the most out of. And this is just a one-day quick job. Imagine having realistic tire wear and heating. Make these tires go the distance. And speaking of distance, this thing there. Oh, I should not look back. Oh, throw it at that. Yeah, well, a huge fuel tank behind me. So the car has about a 50-50 weight distribution until you top it up. Then you've got a 58 or 59% rear weight. So you turn a bit like a front-engined car into a rear-engined car by adding fuel. This was a few years before they figured, you know, what if we have the bathtub fuel that they had in the 60s and 70s on the side of the driver. Maybe there were some additional tanks already in those days by the side of the driver. Much better for weight distribution. Not so great for fire suppression. I'm actually a bit all over the place. I was not planning on that, because you know what happens. I do a talk and drive, and I think somehow by turning on the microphone and the camera I will also become a better driver, but of course I'm a worse driver. I've only done this once or twice, so you can forgive me for that not sticking. So let's see if I can do a proper lap. Is that too late? Yes. Yeah, slightly softer. Oh. Slightly softer front springs. Means it is more pointy. And just like bite, pointiness is a bit weird. Well, what I mean by pointy, in general, the balance is a bit more oversteery. And Alton Park is one of those classic tracks that is historically bumpy. And in this historic layout, it's insane. Really nice track. It's funny about racetracks that you can drive them in so many different cars, but if you struggle with a corner, at least for me, doesn't matter what car. A hard corner is just difficult in all cars, it seems. See how it's not sluggish, you know, how it came back from the slide. It's fairly fast, but there was no risk of it suddenly going the other way. And I still enjoy doing this physics stuff. I've been doing a few single-seater cars now for a racing team with more data than ever, which is very, very good fun. when you overlay the real telemetry over the sim telemetry, and you have to tell them which one is the simulator. Of course, that still some issues with the feel of the car, but no, that's not good. Always room for improvement, but they came from R Factor 2 and now they're to Automobilista 1, which just goes to show, I think, in all driver trainer simulators, racing teams, you will find a mix of software. And it's not so much that AC is better or RF2 or AMS is better, it's just that what can you make work? And they had trouble getting RF2 to work properly. And the reason that AMS works better for them is not because it is fundamentally, by definition, a better sim. By some magic reason, I got involved. But let's go back to the star of the show and finish it off at, well, finish the video off, let's not finish the car off, at Spa. Oh, too late. No, fine, actually. No, good, good. Oh, that was pretty good. Not bad, not bad. So I think that'll have to be it. I had a lot of fun, even though I only spent about a day on it, so there's gonna be imperfections everywhere. We'll see what happens. You know, I do like to release something every year for the 24 people who still play AMS1. We'll see if I can release this as a fun sort of car, maybe towards the holidays. I also have the F40, still quite fun to drive. Didn't get round to it last year, maybe it will happen at some point. So no promises, but I'm not against releasing something for you to try. And by you I mean all 24 players of AMS1. I hope in between the mediocre driving it was had elements of being an enjoyable video. For now, thank you for watching, and have a great day, morning, evening, whatever applies. Bye bye.